The in-depth look at Gordon Hayward begins. Old Jazz relics show themselves in the news. Some Jazz memories and a bizarre quote or tweet from Jimmer Fredette. It's all up next on today's edition of Tip Off. Boom, 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 boom. S. Boom, 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 boom. O. Boom, boom, boom. F. Boom, T. Boom, boom. Larry Bird crushes his team. Boom, 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 boom. Quite honestly, I did not catch a lot of the Pacers Heat game last night. I planned on it, had it on delay or on DVR through my Groove satellite system. And then when I saw the score, didn't do it. Probably should go back and watch these hits everyone's talking about. But the quote of the night from Larry Bird, my team went soft, S-O-F-T, and I can't believe it happened. Wow, he just laid out the Pacers. That one has become, those two teams don't like each other. Roy Hibbert with a quote after the game is saying, LeBron and Wade aren't responding to the physical play. They're letting others do it. So that should be an interesting Game 6 in Indiana between those teams. Though LeBron and Wade are good enough right now. It looks as though they've worn the Pacers out a little bit. Sloan and Kirilenko are both in the news. The Gordon Hayward preview is getting rolling. Parts 2 and 3 will launch today. I should have them both done by. If I say I'll have one done pre-noon and one post-noon, is that all right? Because they just take a little while. But I'm close to publishing both without editing them as often I do. I'll try to do a better job. So anyway, what I'm noticing on Gordon, it's only year 2. It's very early to be able to make full observation on him. But I think I'm beginning to get a vision of what I think Gordon's career path is going to be. And what's jumping out to me is that Gordon's very, very good. In April, I'm trying to do some research on how good. On April, he was crazy good. And post All-Star break, he was crazy good. I mean, his Locke offensive rating post All-Star break was in the elite of the NBA. Top 20 in the NBA. I think those are. We'll see. Maybe that's where he's going. What my vibe on him right now is, and this is really the peak of what he should be as a number 9 pick, is that he's very, very good. That he is going to have a long-lasting career, be right on the edge of all-stardom. May even make an all-star game on the right year if he's on the right team. But I'm going to guess that we, as a fan base, are going to want him to be a star. Manu Ginobili, James Harden, I think those are stars. Players. That we're going to want him to be the elite guy that carries a franchise. I'm not seeing indications of that, and nor should you ever expect it with the 9th pick of the draft. Manu's a unique case in just he was a European and he came before the curve, but I mean Harden's the 3rd pick of the draft. Top 3, 4 picks are the guys that carry franchises. That's why I really think it's on face. And I don't know whether or not we're going to see that from a 9th pick in Gordon Hayward. Danny Granger, nice player. Might be the Pacers' best player at times. He's not a star that can carry a franchise. That team's built nicely and does a lot of things well. And that might be the kind of player, not just not the type of player that Granger is. There's some differences to their games, but that kind of player. He's probably can be, a really good player, high level, making opponents better, but I'm not sure he's a carry a franchise guy. And these are not criticisms at all to Gordon. I think he's going to be fabulous, and his work ethic and desire are going to continue to push him, and he's not limited in any way athletically, so he can continue to progress, and there's some signs of him heading in the right direction. I mean, what he did that's really unique, and we'll get into I hate it when I do that. It's just unique. Nothing is really unique. That's bad English. What's worth looking at, and I'll get into this in one of the breakdowns, I picked up on it late last night, is as the year went on last year, he got better and better. He shot more threes, but still went to the free throw line at the same rate. That's a pretty special combination. If he he needs to up the amount of threes he takes. He's got to make them, but he needs to shoot more. It's an incredibly important shot in this game, while still going to line. If he does that, he will become he will exceed some of the things I'm saying. But I think the dance that I guess I'm trying to bring up is I think he'll be very, very good. I think we're going to want him to be exceptional and great. And I wonder whether this is going to become a little bit of uh, a fan base issue as we develop this Utah Jazz 4.0, as I like to refer to it. Andre Kirilenko's in the news yesterday. I put it up as a Facebook discuss. I like to do that. I like the Facebook discuss feature. The Facebook discuss feature yesterday. Kirilenko says that he wants to come back to the NBA, and that when he does come back to the NBA, his priority is Utah, New Jersey. This is the same thing it was a year ago. That's kind of exactly what he told me. I remember sitting specifically in the parking lot with him and talking to him about these things, and that's exactly how he felt at the time. And the question is, what should the Jazz reaction to Andre Kirilenko be? And I think it's, on one level, if you take Josh Howard, Raja Bell, and C.J. Miles minutes and give them to Andre Kirilenko, we're dramatically better than we were a year ago. Damari Carroll is taking some of those. I think Alec Burks progresses a little bit, and you could end up being, too deep. You wonder. Andre had a very good year in Europe, but part of me, he lacks the outside shot, but he just does a lot of things, and part of me kind of wonders, a year away, a year refreshed. He could come back as a different player without some of the burdens of that contract, having taken a year away. Part of me wonders if there is a scenario by which Andre Kirilenko ever returns to the Jazz, this is it. This works. He can come back. He doesn't feel like he has to start. He could come off the bench. Depending what the Jazz do with their bigs, he can play both the 3 and the 4. The league is getting smaller. I think he would have more and more chance to play the 4. If you moved Millsap, I actually think he's the perfect player to bring in. I actually find them to be somewhat similar in that Paul is a 4 who could play some 3, and Andre's a 3 who can play some 4, and both of them have some deficiencies in their main position, but frankly, both of them are good enough at their main position that you can go to the playoffs and you can have them as their primary guys there. If you suddenly had Kirilenko and these are all at a decent price, Kirilenko and Millsap as coming off your bench with a starting lineup of Harris, Hayward, Carroll, Favors and Jefferson. You want to go fast and let it rip. You play a front line of Kirilenko, Millsap, and Favors. You want to go big. You play Favors, Jefferson, and Millsap. You go Kirilenko at the 4 at times with Hayward at the 3, Burks at the 2. I think you've got some interesting players there in this continuing development. So I'm not going to shut the door on that. I think the Jazz will revisit some aspects of Kirilenko coming in, and with the money that the Jazz have, I would say Kirilenko, I'm not saying he's going to give a hometown discount, but he may find that there's a smaller market than he wants. He did turn down $11 million last year, so if he's thinking he's getting that kind of number again, then we're into a totally different ballpark and a different range. But I thought it was, I don't know. I guess that's my point. I think if there's ever a scenario, this is the way to make it work. Jerry Sloan. This is not surprising me. This is not surprising me from the day in which he stepped down. And I hope people aren't missing this. Nothing here is surprising me. I remember being in Sacramento, and I discussed this on a pregame shot with the guys last year. No different than NBA players or baseball players or baseball managers who have stepped away and retired because they're tired. And then after a year of not getting that rush, that adulation, that excitement, that mental challenge, they want back. I can't blame them. Uh, and I think there's nothing surprising about this. It doesn't, to me, mean that anything that was said on the press conference day when Jerry and Phil stepped aside is inaccurate. I was with that team that entire year. I was around that team. I think, once he said it, you suddenly looked around. There were some indications, and other people knew more than I did. Uh, you know, of what was taking place. And yeah, some of it was Darren wore him out. Some of it he was just worn out. Those things are all completely accurate. And now, a year out of it, realizing, wow, I'm pretty healthy. I've got a lot of time left in my life. No, I don't really want to go to the farm and sit around and visit games without being a part of them. And if I got another chance to do it for 3 or 4 more years, why wouldn't I? I'm not surprised by this at all. Where does he land? It's going to be interesting. He's got to really believe that ownership's going to let him have his say. And ownership's going to have to let him do his deal. And then it's going to be quite an adjustment for a team. I think it'll be interesting to see how flexible Jerry is. He's really much more of a player's coach than people realize. And I think it'll be eye-opening to see when he coaches again, how he approaches it, how he conducts it, and what he does. He's not a modern-day – I mean, the irony of all of the garbage by CJ and Raja after the season is that Jerry just never talked to anyone. Jerry's approach was, if I talk to them, they'll get tired of me. And so he had very, very limited communication with his players. In this day and age where people want communication and those kind of things, I wonder how that will work. I'm curious, actually, to see if it worked. Jerry's a great coach. No question Jerry can coach it. Jerry can approach it. Jerry can do it. Different organizations fit differently. Very good coaches have had things not work because the organization's not right. And how Jerry's going to find the right spot for him, I think, is really quite curious. Speaking of curious, the very mysterious, bizarre quote by Jimmer Fredette. And the only reason I would have brought this up if any player had said this, but it happened to be Jimmer, where he tweeted out, great Western Conference matchup of contrasting styles. And I thought it was eye-opening just because I think it tells you sometimes how little players actually know about what's going on. They're the exact same teams. Oklahoma City was built to be San Antonio. That's their model. Their pace of play is identical. Their defensive efficiency is identical. Spurs are a little bit better offensively, but they're 1-2 in the NBA. That's worth a note, by the way, of where the NBA is heading. They each, with same exact pace of play, the Spurs shoot 21 threes. The Thunder shoot 20. The Spurs get 25 shots a game at the rim. Oklahoma City gets 25 shots a game at the rim. Defensively, the Spurs do a little bit better on where they allow shots than Oklahoma City does. But their organizations are modeled after each other. They play somewhat similar tempos. I mean, exact same tempos. Oklahoma City goes into an early isolation, whereas the Spurs go into an early pick and roll, and that's about the largest contrast I can find out of these two teams. Maybe the vision is that the difference is an age issue, that Oklahoma City is young and San Antonio is thought of as old, which Tim Duncan is, but they're not particularly old. So I thought that was kind of an interesting comment. I'm not trying to pick on Jimmer. I would have said this about any player. Just sometimes players have their perspective, and maybe that last thing is the perspective is simply an age comment as being the main one. But otherwise, the Oklahoma City is junior San Antonio. They've completely modeled themselves after them in every step of the way. All right, that's today's tip-off. 1280 The Zone starts today, the sports leader. I just want to don't want to make a big deal out. Ben Bagley, unfortunately, is not on that roster. Ben is the best. He's just the best, one of the best people. He's a total class act. He's got the biggest heart. He's a fabulous father. He allowed Locked On Sports to prosper. I hope I made that clear while it was going on. When we came back and did Locked On Sports, he had the most difficult job of anyone I've seen in radio, which was to allow me the freedom to be completely domineering on the show and yet at the same time have an impact. And to some extent, he had to do something that was impossible in our business, is be egoless because I had enough ego to fill the room for both of us. And he did that. And then his help to me on jazz broadcasts over the year with reporting and covering and his jazz bags work on shoot around and basically covering anytime I couldn't do something has been amazing. So I just wanted to give Ben a shout out. I'm sure today's a really tough day for him. I'm not sure if he's listening, but just there's a guy who deserves a ton of respect. If you have a moment, maybe send him, if you could for me, if you have a moment, send him a little note on Twitter at Ben Bags, thanking him for all he did. He's really, hopefully he lands somewhere because he's a good dude. He's worked hard. He's worked his way up from the bottom. And he's just a very, very solid human who, father of two and a husband, and hopefully everything he lands on his feet, does well, and gets a chance to prosper. Maybe even gets an opportunity where he can get out of the shadows of people like myself who really didn't give him a chance to prosper. And I guess, hopefully, that's not the reason he is where he is at this exact moment. Looking for an opportunity, but I have good things happen to good people. I've got good faith. Things will happen well for Ben. So anyway, I just want to give him a shout out as well. All right, see you. Enjoy the new 1280, the Sports Zone, the Sports Leaders, 1280 Sports is whatever. I don't have it yet, but they're certainly loaded with talent. Should be a lot of fun to listen to, and best of luck to all those guys involved.